In the summer of 1969, humanity held its collective breath, eyes turned towards the heavens. The Apollo 11 mission was the culmination of a decade's worth of effort, a monumental undertaking of science and will. Millions gathered around television sets, their living rooms illuminated by the ghostly glow of a broadcast from space. They witnessed Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin take their first steps onto the lunar surface, a feat previously confined to science fiction. The images they saw, however, were a mere shadow of the truth, a degraded copy of a much clearer original. The real story of the Apollo 11 video begins not on television screens, but on large, 1-inch magnetic data tapes. A special slow-scan television camera, or SDV, was used on the moon to capture the historic moments. This camera operated on a different frequency and format than standard broadcast television, a necessity for transmitting over 250,000 miles. Raw, high-fidelity SDV signal was beamed from the moon to 3 crucial tracking stations on Earth. These stations, located in Goldstone, California, Honeysuckle Creek, Australia, and Parkes, Australia, were the planet's electronic eyes. At these locations, the pristine video feed was recorded directly onto reels of professional-grade magnetic tape. These recordings represented the purest visual record of the moonwalk, sharp and detailed. Simultaneously, a complex conversion process took place in real time. The SDV signal had to be translated into the NTEC format that home televisions could understand. This conversion was a technological marvel in itself, but it was not without sacrifice. Each step of the conversion and rebroadcast stripped away a layer of quality. The world watched a 10th generation copy, a ghost of the original image captured on the lunar surface. At the time, the successful live broadcast was the primary goal. The tapes were merely a backup. Nobody could have foreseen the immense historical value those original tapes would one day hold. After the mission's success, the tapes, numbering around 45 reels from the moonwalk, were sent to a NASA archive. They joined a colossal library of over 200,000 other tapes from various missions. As the 1970s and 1980s progressed, NASA faced a new, more mundane challenge, a severe budget and resource crunch. New satellite programs, like Landsat, were hungry for data storage. The 1-inch magnetic tapes used for these programs were expensive and in short supply. A logical, if tragically short-sighted, decision was made. NASA would recycle its vast stock of older magnetic tapes. The process was known as degaussing, a powerful magnetic field that wiped the tape clean. Thousands upon thousands of tapes were systematically erased and put back into circulation. No special distinction was made for the Apollo 11 originals. They were just numbers in a massive inventory. The memory of the moon was wiped clean by the magnetic hum of a degaussing machine. For years, nobody noticed they were gone. The world had its broadcast copies, and the original tapes faded from institutional memory. The alarm was finally raised in the early 2000s, as the 40th anniversary of the landing approached. Historians and researchers, eager to apply modern technology to the original footage, began asking for the tapes. NASA officials began to search, assuming the tapes were simply misfiled in their vast archives. A small, dedicated team of retired engineers and data specialists was assembled to lead the hunt. This team, which included some of the original Apollo-era technicians, knew what they were looking for. They scoured the Goddard Space Flight Center's records and the National Archives. They sifted through mountains of documentation, looking for shipping manifests and storage logs. Hopes would rise with a potential lead, only to be dashed by a dead end. search was a painstaking process of elimination, a detective story decades after the fact. Finally, they uncovered the critical paperwork, the withdrawal and degaussing orders from the 1970s and 80s. The records showed that hundreds of thousands of tapes had been processed. The conclusion became inescapable. The Apollo 11 tapes were not lost, but actively, intentionally erased. In 2009, NASA held a press conference to announce the results of their long search. They confirmed that the 45 original SSTV tapes of the moonwalk were gone forever. It was a case of bureaucratic housekeeping, not a conspiracy or mysterious loss. The agency expressed deep regret over the loss of this invaluable piece of history. To mitigate the loss, NASA commissioned a new project, a state-of-the-art restoration of the broadcast footage. They gathered the best surviving copies of the NTC broadcast from various sources, including the CBS News archives. Using advanced digital processing, they painstakingly cleaned up the footage, frame by frame. This restored version, released in 2009, is the highest quality version of the moonwalk that exists today. While it is a massive improvement, it can never replicate the clarity of the lost originals. The story of the Apollo 11 tapes is a powerful cautionary tale about the fragility of digital history. It highlights the danger of prioritizing future needs at the total expense of preserving the past. The truth was not hidden by conspiracy, but erased by practicality. The clearest view of humanity's greatest journey was lost not in space, but in a storeroom. The event itself is not in doubt, only our best record of it. The raw data from the moon was captured with remarkable precision. Engineers at the tracking stations watched their monitors with intense focus. They were the first humans to see the sharp, slow scan images. Each reel of tape was a priceless, one-of-a-kind artifact. The conversion to broadcast television was a necessary compromise. Signal was routed through a complex chain of electronic devices. This chain, while effective, introduced noise and reduced detail. The public was unaware of the superior quality of the master tapes. After the mission, the tapes were cataloged and stored according to standard procedure. They sat in a climate-controlled vault, silent witnesses to history. But the demand for new tapes for new missions grew relentlessly. The recycling program was seen as a fiscally responsible solution. No one raised an objection to erasing the Apollo-era data. The machines used for degaussing were powerful and indiscriminate. They treated every tape the same, whether it held mundane satellite data or a walk on the moon. The loss went unnoticed for nearly 2 decades. The search began with a simple question: where are the originals? The search team was a band of brothers united by a common past. They interviewed dozens of retired colleagues, jogging old memories. They followed paper trails that had grown cold over 30 years. The discovery of the degaussing logs was the turning point. It was the smoking gun that solved the mystery. There was no single person to blame. It was a systemic failure. The 2009 announcement was a moment of public closure. The restoration project was an attempt to recover what could be recovered. They sourced footage from a forgotten film vault in Australia. The result is a testament to both the original event and modern ingenuity. Yet, the knowledge of the lost tapes adds a layer of melancholy to the triumph. It reminds us that history is not always permanent. Data, especially digital data, requires constant, active preservation. Hidden truth was simply a matter of misplaced priorities. The legacy of Apollo 11 is secure, written in history books and in the dust of the moon. But the clearest picture of that legacy is a memory, a ghost on a wiped magnetic tape. The original camera captured more detail than any television of the era could display. Each frame from the STV camera was a high-resolution black and white photograph. The tracking station recorders were the size of refrigerators. Their spinning reels were a mesmerizing dance of data capture. The loss of this data was an unintended consequence of progress. The value of an asset is not always apparent at the time of its creation. The search team felt they were racing against time, as memories faded. Every interview was a potential key to unlocking the mystery. The final report closed a chapter on one of NASA's most frustrating mysteries. The restored footage brought the moon landing to a new generation in stunning clarity. It is a bittersweet victory, a beautiful image haunted by the specter of a better one. The tale serves as a lesson for archivists in the digital age. What seems disposable today may be priceless tomorrow. The physical tapes may be gone, but the event's impact is indelible. The conversion process involved pointing a camera at a high-resolution monitor. This optical conversion was the main source of image degradation. The procedure was a clever but crude workaround by modern standards. Tapes were stored in the Federal Records Center in Suitland, Maryland. Were shipped there under the assumption of long-term preservation. The tape shortage was a real and pressing operational concern for NASA. The decision to recycle was made by mid-level managers, not top officials. The search team created a database to track every clue. Some leads took them to unexpected places, like a chicken farmer's barn. The discovery of telemetry data in Australia offered a glimmer of hope. It proved that the old tapes were still readable if they could be found. But no video telemetry tapes ever surfaced from that find. The restoration relied on digital noise reduction and image stabilization. The final product was a mosaic, pieced together from the best parts of many recordings. The story is a reminder that data has a physical form that can be lost. Clearest view of the moonwalk now exists only in the minds of those who saw it firsthand. The silence from the wiped tapes is a quiet testament to a lost treasure. The camera's slow scan rate was 10 frames per second. This allowed for higher resolution within the limited bandwidth. The tracking stations had to have 2 recorders for each station. One was for the video, and the other for voice and biomedical data. The tapes were considered government property, subject to standard asset management. The cost of a single reel of tape was over $200 in the 1970s. Multiplying that by 200,000 shows the scale of the perceived savings. The search team published their findings in a detailed report. This report is now the definitive history of what happened. The restoration team worked with Hollywood post-production houses. They used the same techniques used to restore classic films. The project cost several $100,000 to complete. It was a small price to pay to reclaim a piece of history. The loss of the tapes does not change the fact of the achievement. It merely changes how we are able to see it. The story is a footnote in the grand narrative of space exploration. But it is a crucial footnote about the importance of remembering. The clearest images of the moonwalk are now lost to time and magnetic fields.